I invite you to let your body soften. Slip your shoes off to feel the floor under you if that will help you to feel grounded. And sense all the places where you are supported in body and in spirit. And then let's just let the strains of this music and the gift of our own breath lead us into the comfort of amazing grace, of love. In the stillness of this moment, there is only love. And so it is. I am so grateful I found a community where there are tissue boxes in every square inch of the place. And we know how to use them. One of my favorite quotes about grace is Catherine of Siena. God's grace, unsought and unearned, blows through my life, and all I need to do is raise my sails to catch the full wind. So here we are today to lift our sails together. And in an interesting way that my spiritual homes, the one I was born into and lived in for so many years, that Catherine of Siena is a part of, and in my newfound home that is the soil that nurtures me now, I have some beautiful words of wisdom on grace from Eric Butterworth to begin, from The Universe is Calling. The word grace means favor. Why are you favored as a child of God? simply because you are the activity of God, expressing as you. God's will for you is so intense, so continuous, that it even filters through your willfully closed mind. Oh, it's so interesting to look in that mirror. He goes on to remind us, you are not a helpless creature bobbing about like a cork on the seas of life at the mercy of the storms of fate and circumstance. And I would add, no matter what your week has felt like. You are the very self-livingness of God. When you desire spiritual growth, it is God who has first desired it in you. You are the activity of God in expression, beloved with an everlasting love. Living in a state of grace is an expression often used to imply that the person has earned God's favor. Living in a state of grace, Butterworth reminds us, can mean simply nothing more nor less than living in a disciplined awareness of the divine flow. God's flow is constant. Our experience of it changes with our consciousness. Grace as the divine favor, the activity of God's love, is working for you constantly. It is not dependent upon any special faith or prayer on your part. Like the buoyancy of water that will keep you afloat even when you try to submerge yourself, grace fulfills divine law by sustaining you in spite of yourself. Have any of you felt the in spite of yourself in your life? When I was thinking this week about what the message would be, I was actually working from the waiting room at St. Peter's Hospital, where Dad has been since last Friday. The bobbing on the cork of the sea of life has felt very, very present for me and for our family this week. Oh, you're doing better. Oh, not so fast. Oh, you're doing better. Oh, not so fast. We're at the edge of that river. We've not submerged ourselves completely in that river yet. But we have spent a very exhausting week dabbling our toes in that particular river. I know, looking around this room, that there are those of you who have been bobbing with your own challenges, waiting by the bedside of loved ones, dealing with your own heart's losses and challenges, the way the complex ecosystem of your families deal with the joys and sorrows together, sometimes with such visible grace and sometimes despite ourselves. So from our conversation, Roger sent me truthunity.net. It's like, you're thinking about grace. I knew I had this bit of Eric Butterworth. He's like, here, look what I found. So today, this week, one of the ways that grace showed up for me, as it does every week, is Roger. And the way we share back and forth to craft the container of these services so that it fills his well, it fills my well, and we invite you into that well as well. But there's a little, I will link this. It'll be on the website when we post the service recording. On truthunity.net, there's a whole 75-page lesson, basically, called Grace Awakening. It is written by Debbie Tyson, and it was put together in 1993 as part of the Unity School for Religious Studies. It's a resource for all of us. And so I'm going to invite you into some of the passages that helped the stone that was sitting on my chest all week long soften. And I invite you to hold what needs to soften in your heart as we hear the gift of these short little passages of inspiration to remind us what grace is. So from Grace Awakening, remember that the grace of God is God's love in action. God's grace is unlimited and so wonderful that words can hardly describe it. That's from Weekly Unity from October 14th, 1956. It's one of the things that I took comfort from, actually. It's like, oh yeah, this is our human story. That love in action, God's love for us, and then our expression of it with each other. Part of our humanness is that we forget that piece. We think we have to earn it by praying hard enough, by being good enough, by being dutiful enough, when really we just have to be. So from the Handbook of Positive Prayer, there's this. Grace is God's gift of love and mercy given freely to us whether or not we deserve it. We cannot steal, borrow, buy, or earn it. We can only accept it or refuse it. From Margaret Founder's in Laws of Love. So in this Grace Awakening, there's these little gems. I invite you to explore it on your own. Grace has nothing to do with anything that anyone has ever done, nor with any outward activity on our part. Grace is an inner realization that we are already one with God, have always been, and always will be. That the only separation is a false belief in our own mind. Grace is simply the truth of being that which we are. There is only love. We are how we each know that God is love in action because we show each other. For me this week, signs of grace were in that hospital, was witnessing families gathering in relief and gathering in grief. Grace was the incredible care of every doctor and nurse and tech and person cleaning the rooms that has been a part of our journey as a family this week as we hold Dad and pray for his healing. Grace is how many times I heard the ping of my phone that was a message. One of my kids, siblings, friends, people from here, friends from other parts of my life checking in. How's he doing today? How are you doing today? Do you need dinner? Do you need rides? Love in action is also how we show up for each other. Grace yesterday was the gift of saying, yes, please, let me watch Eli so you, Sarah, and Noah can go visit Grandpa in the hospital. Yeah, bring it. I will play with Legos. I will be the Grandma BB excavator My back's a little tweaky today, and it's a reminder of how much fun I had with a 2 3/4-year-old. So full of grace. So full of grace, and I don't take him and the fact that I'll get to play with Keeley next weekend. They're the easy signs of grace. So I lifted my sails in those ways, seriously, sometimes with clenched hands. So I invite you to think about, how are you going to lift your sails this week? As we step into the rest of today, into whatever your life, the complex reality of your life, what that means for you. How are you stepping in? Where do you need to find a hand to join yours as you're clapping one-handed? To remember that there's a hand of God that's going to reach out to touch yours. The assurance of grace and having that title for today, and my dear friend Judy's little plaque on her wall, "Don't go ahead of grace," kept me grounded in the more challenging moments this week. They lifted me out of those moments that felt exhausting. But we also know that living in a state of grace doesn't mean we never face those moments. We don't avoid moments of hardship, frustration, loss. There are reckonings with how the world unfolds and how life unfolds. But when we lean into the assurance that faith and grace and love are what we're made of, it helps us put one, sometimes barefoot grounding on the floor, one foot in front of the other, to say, okay, I can do this now. I can reach out my hand and ask for help. I can reach out my hand and offer help. I can receive grace and I can be grace, because that is what we are. We are in that flow. Grace is simply a wonderful facet of the activity of God in you. Eric Butterworth. It is not something you must work for or develop. It simply is. It is an assurance, an explanation, maybe also an exclamation, of why things are never quite hopeless, and why we never receive the full harvest of the error we sow, and why we always receive a little more good than we think we have to earn. You are, I am, we are the activity of God expressing. You are, I am, we are the very self-livingness of God in every moment. So we each have to answer for ourselves, what is mine to do? What is mine to do as the self-livingness of God expressed in me? So we ask it of ourselves. We ask it in the quiet of listening to the voice of God within. But we walk with each other in every bit of it. So not surprisingly, I have a poem for us. But in the way that surprise happens, I had a different one planned yesterday. And then this morning I opened one of my daily inspirational readings. And this was there. It's called Animal Grace. by Gloria Heffernan. And I just thought this is what we needed today. I have tried all the prayers my mother taught me, kneeling by the bedside when I was 5. Maybe I loved it because that literally was me. Now I lay me down to sleep. I have tried all the prayers my mother taught me, kneeling by the bedside when I was 5. They're all good, but they've never felt like me. I have tried namaste and shalom and amen because I know words matter and I want to choose wisely from the lexicon of peace. But it wasn't until I saw the 3-legged pit bull bounding across the playground that a prayer rose to my lips that finally said, "Oh yes, this is my psalm. This is the hymn I will carry in my heart until the day I die. This is the sacred goal I must aim for." And so I begin the day with these words. Dear Lord, dear love, dear Lord, let me greet every person who crosses my path as if they were a dog. Let my face light up with joy and curiosity. Let my hand reach out with tenderness and care. Let me see and celebrate their eagerness to love. Let me offer up bowls of food and soft blankets. Let me pause and gaze into their deep, warm eyes. Let me trust their capacity for goodness. When I find a person who has been mistreated, who growls like a hungry cur in a dark alley, let me approach cautiously, but approach nonetheless. When I see one who is hungry and trembling in a doorway, let me share with them whatever is mine to give. Let me love first and ask questions later. Let me see in their eyes the answer to the only question that matters. No matter the pedigree, no matter the mix, let me see a creature whose only job is to be loved. And so it is.